What is up, cool cats of the internet? This is Haley, back at it again from GameLuster with another Buy It, Try It, or Deny It podcast. As normal, I am rolling with my usual crew. We got Brennan.
Hi.
Great. And then we have Mike.
What's up?
Cool. So, we're going to start it off. First, I do want to say this. Thanks to everybody who watched our last Buy It, Try It, or Deny It episode on YouTube. We got like over 1,000 views, and that definitely means a lot to us. So thank you so much for watching. If there's any hot takes that you guys liked, definitely let us know. I'm gonna try to come up with jokes to make it more funnier, but if it's cringeworthy, then just let me know. Because, you know, I don't want to be a dork. They're laughing at me. Whatever.
I'll tell you. I'll be the first to tell you.
Oh, thanks.
Don't worry.
But we're going to kick it back to March's, the games that we talked about last month in March. And we are going to start off with Resident Evil 3. It released on April, well, it'd technically be this month, but you know, whatever. It released on April 3rd. It currently has a Metascore of 80 and an average user score of 5.8, which is very surprising because I know a lot of my friends were super excited for this game. They're huge Resident Evil fans, so seeing a user score of 5.8 is very surprising.
Where do you fall on that scale, Mike? Like, or do you lean more towards the user score?
I didn't get to play Resident Evil 3, but from what I saw, a lot of people weren't happy with how incredibly short the game was. I think you could beat it in like 4 or 5 hours or something like that.
Yeah. Honestly, that sounds about like the same as what I've read in like 5-6 hours. If you know, and a lot of the content was cut apparently.
Yeah.
Like, Haley, yeah, we do. Oh, we don't. Oh, yeah, we do. It's, if you, Brian, cut this shit out too. You know, Haley, if I put him on the platforms and...
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that beforehand.
All
yeah,
good.
that was my bad. In like 5-6 hours, a lot of the content was cut, apparently. Like, I mean, hence why it was so short. People were calling it like a DLC, essentially, instead of like a full-fledged game. That kind of sucks.
And I feel there wouldn't have been as much of a problem if this was like a DLC campaign to Resident Evil 2 remake. I understand they try to justify the full 60 because it also comes with Resident Evil Resistance.
How is that? I mean, I don't. That was like one of the things.
Is
I didn't even
Resident
look that
Evil
up.
Resistance?
Yeah.
It's a multiplayer mode. It's 4 players play as survivors and 1 plays as a mastermind. And the mastermind is supposed to kill the survivors before they can escape from the level.
Huh. So that's an odd way to tack on multiplayer, but
I
interesting.
feel like that's almost like a COD way of doing things. Like, they know... Well, I feel like it's kind of backwards in this sense, because a lot of people would rather play Resident Evil for the actual single-player story than the multiplayer, whereas COD, people play it for the multiplayer rather than the story mode. But if you try to justify it by adding multiplayer, like, you have to make your multiplayer good for it to be worth replaying and actually worth that $60.
Yeah, from what I saw, Resistance wasn't very, very good.
I remember reading somewhere like it was just kind of unbalanced, like the survivors, I think, where I remember reading something somewhere like saying that the survivors were more powerful than the mastermind, so like the survivors almost always won.
Yeah.
So it's like, meh. To be honest, I thought that was like I don't know why I thought that was like a separate. I don't know, I guess, yeah. I get what Haley's saying though about like it's kind of like a reverse tacked on situation. Like they just kind of tacked on a multiplayer aspect, whereas Call of Duty kind of like tacks on a single player. Well, I guess kind of used to at one point. Maybe not always.
I don't know. Like, clearly Resident Evil fans feel that everything that they cut out is a necessary part of the game. So I'm very curious as to why the developer thought those parts weren't necessary. Like, it's supposed to be a remake. Why not keep it true to the original? Why are you cutting out so many parts?
I guess timeline. They probably started this in development, I think, around the same time as 2. Maybe not at the same time, but at least like in a similar window. So like, I don't know. I'm just kind of surprised that this one kind of like doesn't quite as much stack up with as 2, as Resident Evil 2. But shit happens.
Hopefully the rumored 4 does a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big one. We've talked about that. I think that would definitely be, hopefully, that would be a little bit more successful in this one. But who knows?
I mean, it's kind of sort of disappointing, in all honesty. There's a lot of remakes coming out these days, and people have high hopes because some people just can't play these games on, the older consoles anymore because they can't find them. Or maybe they're just a little bit too expensive, or whatever that issue might be. So, for some people, this might be the entry into the series for them because maybe they want to start all the way back at the beginning, and the developer shafting them by not giving them the true original. And I don't expect like we're going to remaster this frame by frame, pixel by pixel, but if you shorten it, you're cutting so much out that people can't experience. So that's kind of shitty that they're not getting the same experience as others had who played the original 3.
We're going to talk about the opposite problem, like, in a few moments.
Basically, so with that segue, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. So it released on April 10th. It has a Metascore of 88 and a user score of 8. So clearly everyone basically likes it.
Like, did you get a chance to play it yet? Or were you still playing through Persona?
Oh, I think Persona's going to keep me busy for a while.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm thinking of picking up Remake after I finish Persona, though.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll keep it kind of spoiler-like then. But, oh man, if Resident Evil was too short, I want to say that don't get me wrong. I think it's a quality game. It's a very faithful recreation of the original. It explains a lot of story beats that were kind of unpresent in the original, at least as far as I know. Certain scenes just kind of make more sense, and more character development is kind of shown. There's a lot of scenes that are allowed to breathe, but for every scene that's allowed to breathe, there's a lot of like padding. Like, let's walk through this sewer, and you're just walking through the sewer for the next like 2 hours, and you're just like, now I know why people are saying they've got like 40-hour game times. It's because they just throw you in these hallways and you just have to run, and like the sneaking sections where you have to where there's like 2 boxes and you gotta go in between. It takes so slow, man. Oh my god, there's so much padding. But to make up for the padding, I think the combat is actually quite fun. Once you get 3 characters in the mix, the demo only gives you 2. Once you get 3 characters in the mix, and you're constantly looking at each person's ability bar or like their attack meter or whatever, and their limits and stuff, and you're switching through characters constantly, like hitting a bunch of buttons. I don't know, it felt so good. It felt natural. Like, the bosses are really insane and like way over the top, kind of like in the demo, that same structure of like over the top phases during the boss fight, like that's present in all of them, and it's just really cool. Like, kind of spoiler, there's one character where when you're walking Aerith back to her house, after you meet her for the first time, you get kind of pursued by the Turks who are this group that's trying to capture Aerith. And you fight this one guy who's got sunglasses on, and in the fight, it transitions to a cutscene where Cloud kicks him or something, and he loses his glasses. They fall on the ground, they break, and he just picks them up, throws them away, and then pulls out another pair of sunglasses and just puts them straight on, all in one motion, dude. And it just goes right back to the gameplay. And I was like, what the hell is going on? That was insane. Like, that blew my mind. The new meets the old in a good way, but it's padded, very much so. And some of the mini games are just kind of weird. But I think I'm playing through it now. I've been streaming my whole playthrough, actually, on Twitch. Mostly just for friends of mine, but like, it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying my time with it a lot.
Do you think that everything that they've changed and that they've added is worth it?
So far I want to say yes. Mostly because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the Midgar section in such a short amount of time in the original. You really only spent like the first 5-6 hours there, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah, right. So like, there's a lot of characters that you meet, like Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. You spend some time with them, but you don't really get to know them. In this game, you get to know them. So and again, this is where you start getting the spoilers. But it's like, is there really spoilers if people played the game? Like 20 years ago. But something, whenever anything tragic happens to them in the original, it was like, oh, that sucks. But they were part of it. They knew what they signed up for, because at that point they were just kind of one-dimensional. But in the remake, they're fleshed out. You spend a whole chapter like driving with the team, like on the bike, to another sector to do a mission or whatever. And I'm not going to spoil that either. Are you kidding? But it makes them feel believable. So I want to say yes. I think that the changes are kind of, in most cases, good. There's also another scene, again, towards the middle-ish, where Aerith kind of gets captured, quote unquote, in the original. And to me, it always kind of felt like this weird damsel in distress. But in the remake, they address it as, they basically explain it, and they address it as, no, it was, it was her choice to do what she did. And I feel like that definitely adds a positive to her character, rather than it just being, oh, it's a damsel in distress episode. Cloud has to save Aerith again. Oh no. It's like, no, she knew what she was doing. She signed up for it. It made me like, it gave me an appreciation for her in such a small aspect in a quote black screen of the original, that I was like, damn, I like this. This is interesting. There's other weird additions and changes though that haven't quite been explained yet. So I maybe don't have the best opinion on that. I haven't beaten it. So maybe I could look back at this whole thing and be like, well, that was fucking stupid. So far, I think the changes are interesting. They've kept me wanting to see, like, I know what happens. I've done this section like 4 or 5 times already since playing the original. Like, but my heart's still racing when certain shit happens towards the end. Certain character breakdown moments. Like, I'm still trying to figure out like what's next, like what scene are we going to next, and it's always cool being like, oh, can I match up the camera angles to where the camera angles would have been on the PS1? Like in the train, I spent a whole like 5 minutes trying to like figure out where the camera would be sitting in the train, and putting Cloud there and looking at that. I spent too much time doing that. Dude, it was fun. It was a good time. If you haven't gone through it, I would definitely recommend going through it this way. I feel like it brings out the best in the characters.
I feel like from what you said, this is definitely the opposite of Resident Evil 3. Like, if you were going to get into Final Fantasy, this seems like a good place to get into, because it's updated, it has a lot of new aspects. Yes, there are some changes, but it seems like those overall changes have made the game better.
Yeah.
And have added a lot more things and fleshed out a lot more stuff. So maybe questions that people had before, they're answered now. So I feel like I was going to play this game, but I didn't, because I played the demo and I died, and I was like, yeah, maybe not. But I've been watching the who did I watch? I think I watched the Rad Brad, like always, play some of this, and it does look really cool. I mean, the graphics are amazing. I love the art style. I think it's really, it definitely suits it. It's grimy when it needs to be, but I think the characters and their designs also really stand out. So I feel like this is a game that I would eventually play if I have the time. Being that they're cutting this into multiple sections, I feel like I would need to dedicate probably like a decade to actually playing this game. um, but whatever they're doing well that people really like with this one, hopefully they don't change too much of that. Savage. So, next, roll into another Square Enix game. Is it Trials of Mana or Mana? I always get this wrong.
Trials of Mana, you're good.
There we go.
Oh,
Slay. I got the okay from Mike, so we're just gonna roll with what he says because he's the expert. So it releases tomorrow. Actually, we're filming this on the 23rd. If anybody wants to really know, but this releases on the 24th. It has a average Metacritic score is 77, and the user score is to be determined because, well, nobody can really get it until tomorrow. So, how do we feel about that?
from what I've read, it seems like a very faithful recreation to the original. But I didn't even kind of playing the demo myself for a bit. It just felt kind of bland personally. Like, I think that it does have a certain charm to it, and there's a lot of concepts that I really enjoy, like the whole organizing your party and having different story beats happen because of your different configurations, and the class upgrade system seemed really cool too. But overall, I don't know. Personally, it just wasn't for me. I know I've got a friend of mine who's actually just messaging me now on Discord. And he's like, "Dude, 4 hours left until this game comes out." Like, he's very excited. So I can kind of see it being in that middle ground. I think the score suits it.
When you describe it as bland, what do you mean exactly? Like, what kind of like turned you off?
Well, I mean, it was mostly, I guess, the moment-to-moment gameplay. The narrative I thought was interesting, especially how it kind of changed. But the moment-to-moment gameplay felt kind of empty to me. There was just some light attacks, a heavy attack that you can charge, a dodge, and and I could be wrong about this, but all of the skills that I had obtained in the demo were like mini cutscenes, essentially. Like, it didn't really seem like there was any skill ceiling other than just like hitting X a couple times and then hitting Y. Light attack, heavy attack, dodge. Do your little cutscene move, boom. That said, like, bosses later on might be difficult, but I don't know. It just didn't seem like it had that skill cap, especially compared to Final Fantasy Remake. Sorry to bring that up, but that to me that was a system that had kind of refreshed things for the better, and it wasn't just cutscenes. Felt bland.
Yeah, I never got the chance to play the original. I always wanted to, get it and try it out, especially now that they re-released it on the Switch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also played the demo for Trial of Mana, and it felt very Tales-like to me.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to, like, IGN gave it an 80, but I mean, we all know IGN, not trying to bash IGN or anything. GameSpot gave it a 60, so I mean, like, there's some jump in between there, but it seems like people are leaning towards that middle ground. Like, it's not perfect, but it's not crap either. So, I guess my whole question is, did they really need to remake this?
That's a good question. I don't really know.
Yeah, that's one I'm kind of like debating right now if they really needed to remake this, because like I said, they re-released the original. They could just given that a really nice new look, the way that Pokemon, what was the one that came out recently?
Sword and Shield?
No.
Are you talking about the Gungeon one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Shit, sorry.
It's all right. Maybe they could have given it that kind of like washover, the original. I don't know if they should have done a complete reworking the way they did.
Like, did the combat also feel kind of like empty to you?
It felt too simple.
Yeah.
See, and I feel like with remakes, that's my whole question is, do you want to just basically rework the graphics, change the camera angles, make it look pretty and next gen for the consoles that are out now? Or do you just want to rework the whole goddamn game, kind of give it like a Final Fantasy vibe and add new stuff and rework your story a little bit, and add more details, maybe take out details that weren't necessarily needed, and kind of almost make like a whole new game? So I feel like that's where I am with remakes at this time, because you can do so many things with a remake and call it a remake.
Yeah.
With Resident Evil, you can cut out half the game and apparently call it a remake. Final Fantasy, you can create a whole goddamn new game and call it a remake. Like, what truly is a remake anymore?
That's a really good. It's just a good question. Like,
we're getting deep here, guys.
Especially no, I mean I love it personally. Like, and after looking at 3 back to back, and you're right. Like when you look at the 3 of them, it's like, how do you? What is? First off, where's the bar? How do you even make the bar? And then where do you even begin to figure out where to put it? Like,
exactly.
We thought that Resident Evil 2 was amazing, and then they make 3, and it's like, how did it not reach that?
It's like every developer is going to have their own standards for remakes, and I feel like Resident Evil is on the low end and Final Fantasy is on the high end, and then Trials of Mana is somewhere in the middle, where you don't know if it really needed to be Final Fantasy style or if it should have just been, let's just update this rather than completely giving it an overhaul. So, like, if these, of course there's always going to be remakes and re-releases and things like that, so I guess I'm just curious to see where developers go after this, just because Final Fantasy VII put out a very high standard for a remake, and not everyone's going to have that same high standard. But I'm also curious to know what games these developers are remaking, and if really in the end they're justified at all. Do these developers actually really care about re-releasing these old games, or are they just doing it for the funds? Because I mean, there's a lot of old games out there that you can't play anymore unless you have one of those older consoles or you have some sort of emulator. So in a way, I find it sort of worth it, but at the same exact time, like, we don't need to remake every single game.
Yeah, there's like this fine line that you have to walk between being like faithful to the original while also like adapting to the time. Because I kind of feel like that was what Trials of Mana's problem was, is maybe it was too faithful to its original. Maybe its gameplay and everything was a little dated, and to just give it a facelift, like, maybe that just wasn't enough. But then in the reverse case of these other two, it's like you have short kind of experiences. Do you either pad it out to make it feel like you're getting your money's worth, or do you just focus on quality over quantity, I suppose, and hope that that's enough? And I don't know, man. Shit. It's a doozy.
It is, man.
Are stumped. I'll be very curious to know what everyone else thinks. All you people listening out there. So let us know. Like, do you agree with where developers are going on remakes? What even is a remake in your book? And should everyone maybe take a Final Fantasy approach to it and make it basically a brand new game? And also, what games would you guys like to see remade? That'd be interesting to see as well. But
everyone's gonna agree with me. Persona 1 and 2.
go away, Mike. But we're going to roll it over into our next segment. So normally at this time, we'd be talking about games that are coming out in May. But as y'all know, right now, lots of people are on stay-at-home orders because of the coronavirus. Maybe you agree with it, maybe you don't. Honestly, don't really care. Just stay safe, wash your hands, don't cough on other people, because that's kind of rude. So, since a lot of people are out of work right now, we felt that it would be a little bit better to maybe talk about some indie games. We try to feature indie games as much as we can on here, while also talking about games that are hot right now. But we also know that not everyone has $60 to spend on games right now, or maybe you don't want to spend $60 on games right now. I can definitely get behind that. So we're going to break it down and talk about some indie games that aren't going to hurt your wallet, and maybe you'll find something that you'll actually like. So if you end up picking up any of these games, let us know what you decide to pick up. But I'm going to start off with Mike, because I'm done with talking for a hot second. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about the games that you picked that people should maybe pick up.
All right, so the first one is Exit the Gungeon. It released for PC and Nintendo Switch last month. I don't know if you guys played Enter the Gungeon, which was an amazing indie roguelike title. Exit the Gungeon kind of takes that, and instead of being a top-down, roguelike shooter, it's more of a 2D kind of aspect now, but it's still crazy ass guns. In the trailer, they show a gun that shoots freaking rainbows and shit at your enemies.
I want one.
There are literally bullets fucking everywhere, and it's got like a nice, like, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, a lot of your enemies are actually bullets shooting guns at you.
Oh, right, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's for PC and the Switch. $9.99, so it doesn't break your wallet. And it's just like the first one, so there's a lot of replayability because there's different classes, different things you can do, and it's just just shooting shit all day long.
Is there any backstory to the title? Like, why was there one called Enter and why is this one called Exit?
So the first one was called Enter because you're going into the gungeon, you're trying to get to the last level of it. This one's called Exit the Gungeon because the gungeon is now falling apart and you're trying to get away from that.
Oh. And I guess somewhat spoilers, but is there anything that you get, like, that's epic that, after you get to the final level, Enter the Gungeon?
Not that I remember.
So basically, you are entering this. One, why is it called a gungeon with a G? And two, you're telling me that you don't get epic loot for entering this and then exiting it when it falls on your face? What? I'm not risking my life for that.
And it's called the Gungeon because instead of dungeon, you're shooting guns all the time. So
fuck that. Whoever came up with that is smart, but I also want to slap them.
But it's fun. I mean,
why didn't I think of that? I'm disappointed.
I know. Why the hell did you think of that? I mean, that's on you. That's on you. That's not on Devolver. That's on you.
Yeah, props to them for coming up with such a cool title, and then me not even realizing it when it sat there right in my face. So disappointed in myself.
This might be an odd question, but like, which would you recommend? Would you recommend Exit or Enter? Like,
that's a hard one.
The side scrolling, or do you like the top down, over excuse me, bird's eye view?
That's a really hard one, just because they're both fun as hell. I'd probably have to go with Enter, but after you beat Enter, if you want to shoot more stuff, exit the Gungeons, your thing.
Right on.
I guess
You
my
didn't- you
last
didn't-
question about this is, why did they change the game style?
Keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh, yeah. It's just like, I mean, I feel like there was only so much that they could have done in terms of like keeping the art style that they wanted, but also the perspective as well. So going from that bird's eye view to a side scroller, it makes sense in a way, and like it's probably easier for them to make as well. Like, I mean, I don't know if I can say that entirely, not having played it, but I imagine that maybe that was less of a stressor on them, so they could focus more on like other things. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it's kind of like they don't want you to feel like you're basically playing the same exact game again with a different title and basically just going backwards.
Holy shit. Here, we just copied and pasted the game, and you just go in reverse, and we threw 2 at the end of it. Here you go.
Knowing Devolver and after watching their press conferences from E3, that's exactly what I expect. Sorry, not sorry, but that's exactly what I expect. Untitled Goose Game.
Oh yeah, I was waiting for you to... Okay, never mind. Yeah, I know this one got a bunch of hype when it first came out, and it's deserving of it. I don't know, I think a lot of people didn't play it, but Untitled Goose Game, it's like the best game where you could be an asshole, and that's like the whole point of the game.
It just looked like, I remember we covered it a lot when it first came out, and it always just looks like wholesome fun, and it looks like really good puzzle game. Like it just looks like the ultimate like relaxing, kind of mischievous puzzle game, and that's just so nice.
We also have a review of Untitled Goose Game done by Elizabeth Christopher, one of our writers. So if you want to go read her review about it, just go on www.GameLuster.com and just search Untitled Goose Game.
But yeah, this is like I said, I mean, all the puzzles revolve around with you screwing with the people in your town.
Right on. Who can
As a goose.
not love that?
Because they're so fucking
as a
mean.
goose.
Because they're so fucking rude. Like,
because gooses are jerks.
They're fucking assholes. Like, I'm watching the trailer right now, and he just stole the mail out of somebody's letterbox, and he just gave this old guy back, like, this, like, little ring, and then he quacked when he went to throw it, and now he's running away from it. Like, you can be so nice to be a jerk. He just tossed the mail in the water. What a dick!
Yeah, you mess with the gardener, you break an old lady's broom.
You steal socks?
Yeah,
oh my god!
Yeah.
You steal
it's one of those
somebody's
games.
pipe?
If you
like,
yeah,
that's just funny though.
Yeah, if you want a good laugh, and you just want something, where you just kick back and ruin people's lives because your life is being ruined right now by coronavirus. This is it. This is the one.
Channel the inner goose.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's funny too because I have that one desktop extension that you can download that it's not official, of course, but he'll steal your like cursor and drag stuff like little messages and stuff across your screen, and it's so funny. When he walks, he leaves little like feet marks. It's so cute.
It's deceiving. He's so cute but so evil at the same time.
I think that's what, and I like the title too. Like,
yeah, for real.
There's nothing else that you could have called it besides that.
Guys, what the hell do we call this thing? I don't know.
Well, it's a game. It has a goose.
Yeah, we don't have a title, so.
Untitled Goose Game.
Wow.
Perfect.
A++. Give that person a medal. That's funny. Okay. I'll kick it to my games I want to talk about. We'll leave Brennan's as the best for last because he has some cool ones to talk about.
Yeah, they're not that cool.
I mean, unless you want to go next, it's up to you.
No, you got it. It's fine.
Okay. So I am going to talk about World of Horror. Real cool. I wrote an impressions piece on it, so go check that out. I'll give you a virtual high five if you do. It's a role-playing game. It's developed by Hands and YS Bird Games, however you pronounce that. Don't ask me, don't know. So it's in early access. The early access came out on February 20th for PC, and it's $14.99, so basically $15 and some change, because they tack on tax, because tax. This game, oh, if you're a fan of Junji Ito, I might have pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry. He's a really famous horror manga artist. And this is his art style, not his exact art style, but it's similar to his art style, basically in a pixeled old school 80s text game. So everything that all your actions that you do, they're all text based. So if a prompt comes up on the screen, like one of the prompts is like you're staring at a school awards case, and it's like, and you see something in there. How do you get in there? Do you take it? Do you break the glass and take it? Do you just walk away? Do you hit it with the whatever weapon that you have equipped? So it's kind of like that. It's really cool. In the way that they have the early access set up, if you've never played anything like it before, they take you through different scenarios. So the first scenario they take you through to teach you the text-based prompts and how the combat works. So all the combat is in sequences. So you hit what you want to do to fill up a bar, and then that plays out once you fill up a bar. So a lot of the times I would do like hit, and then I'd add 2 bonuses on top of that to make my hit a lot more powerful. And then I'd do like stab if I had a knife, and then I could do like duck, and that would fill up my whole bar, and then that would play out, and then the character would hit me, and then I'd do that again. And it was combat that took me a while to get used to figure out what actually worked. Because when you start going through the other scenarios, that's when it starts teaching you how the game actually works, and it starts to give you a lot harder enemies. So eventually when you get to, I think there's 4 scenarios. Once you get to the 4th one, it's basically how the game works, and you have different mysteries in your town that you have to solve, and you have to solve all 5, there's like 5 or 6, I think, all 5 or 6 mysteries, and collect these keys. So you're the old god, they call them old gods, that's like your big enemy at the end, so that you can go defeat it. But if you die during one of those missions, then it's game over for you completely. So that got frustrating, because I think I made it through like 4 and then died, and I was like, fuck. Like, that just made me so depressed, because I was like, shit, I did really good, and then I died. But it's really cool. I really like the art style. You can like change the colors of the game, so like you can have it like stark white, and then you can have it like orange and purple and blue. Yeah, it's really cool. It's also kind of scary. It's horror. It's called World of Horror. You get like magic, and you can have like characters help you, but they only really come in handy once per person that you fight. Or you can like kind of sort of just sacrifice them if you get in a jam. So yeah, it's cool. I like it. I've replayed it quite a few times. It's definitely something I'd recommend, because there is a lot of replayability. If it's definitely not for the faint of heart though, because it is definitely gruesome.
It's Junji Ito. I mean, that guy's crazy. That's all I can say.
He definitely is, and that's one of the reasons why that, like, honestly, I found World of Horror on Twitter because I was looking up a different game that I was curious about, and when I followed them, it recommended me the developer for this game, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I looked it up and I was like, damn, like, yes. And I bought it, and then I played it all weekend long. I was like, I have to write an impressions piece on this. This is so damn cool.
How long would you say a playthrough would go on for?
If you do the last scenario, I feel like it could probably last about an hour. I think that's
okay.
Maybe even longer. It depends on how fast you get through it. Because if you sit there and if you're really good at these types of games, I feel like you could speedrun it. Like for me, it took me about 45 minutes, I think, to get through my 4 cases, and I still had a couple more that needed done. So I feel like it kind of just depends on how well you...
Alright, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and like I said, there's definitely replayability because there's always different cases. I know that they just had an update not too long ago, and they added more cases. You can also customize your game, so like you can pick who your character is. You can pick which god you fight against. You can pick that god's, like whatever their power is.
So it really is like kind of like create your own adventure in a way.
Yeah.
Basically, because like I said, you can customize it or you can have it completely random, and the computer generates it for you. So yeah, so I want to say hour, maybe hour and a half. Definitely like longer than that if you take your time like I did. Just because I was like, shit, I don't know what I'm doing. Some things are timed, some things aren't. So, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's really cool. And for $15, you can't beat it when you're sitting there replaying everything a bajillion times.
Honestly, yeah, it looked like it had a very big focus on the narrative. I mean, it's a text-based game. It's gonna be focused on the narrative, but it just seemed like the writing was very well written and just paid attention to. And I could see you just kind of getting lost in it like a book almost and just wanting to play it over and over and over.
I definitely, like, once it's fully out, I think I'm definitely going to write a review for it. I'm going to roll into my next game. We're not going to sit here and talk about manga for 40 years, because then I'm going to talk about My Hero and how Deku's my son, but I'll leave that alone for right now.
It's all about Toga.
If you really want to get started, Momo's where it's at, but...
Anyway.
There we go. So, we're going to talk about Ministry of Broadcast. It's an adventure/platform game. It's published by, it's developed by Ministry of Broadcast Studios and published by HitSense. It's out on PC. That came out back in January, and it's coming out very soon on Nintendo Switch, and it is also $14.99. Way back when Yonder, this game was linked in our Discord group, and it looked pretty cool. I think somebody that used to be here saw it on like a convention that they went to, I think. I don't remember.
Maybe Indicate or something.
Yeah, I want to say it was.
Like Indicate or something, yeah.
So it's really neat. It's like you have to, your country is divided by something called the Wall, and in order to cross it and get to your family, you have to complete and win a reality show program that's made by somebody called the Regime. So, they're basically torturing you and putting you through all these trials so that you can apparently win, finger quotes, win, and see your family. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was different. It definitely has like an old school, I thought it was like an old school World War II vibe to it, and that's what interested me. Also, the whole fact that, like, this regime is forcing you to, do you want to play a game? Type Saw reference. Nobody laughed. That makes me sad. So, I just thought it was really neat. It doesn't look super hard.
It
Yeah,
just
when I was
seemed.
looking at this, I love the art style that they're going with.
Yeah.
It's that old school, Super Nintendo kind of look thing,
Yeah.
I think the color palette that they also went with is one of the reasons why I like this game so much, because it's not super grungy and dark, but it's also not bright. It's very like neutral,
Yeah.
and it kind of like, honestly, like I thought this game would take place, from what I've seen of it, in like Russia. It doesn't actually say where it takes place, but that's just the vibe that it gives me.
It just looked so well animated. Like what Mike said was talking about the art style. Like it looked great. It felt like it was like very fluid and how the animation worked out. But just, I guess my only kind of complaint from watching it was just that I was like, oh man, this is just a platformer. Like I feel like if they like took this out and made it like I don't know, like added some kind of like stealth aspect to it, like action adventure, not to not make it what it is. It looked like a really cool platformer, but I was like, damn, I want them to do more with this kind of setup. It seemed really cool, but I was just like, ah, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's just me.
I get what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it kind of feels like there's no, maybe like no punishment for what you're trying to do,
Maybe.
because it doesn't really seem like anybody really chases you. But at the same exact time, like I haven't played this yet because we're working on trying to get a code for it, so I plan on eventually reviewing this. Um,
Mm.
but sort of like that one Assassin's Creed game they did, that's a platformer. Like if the guards saw you, you had to duck and hide and sneak around, and they don't show any of that in this.
Mm.
So I think it would have been cool if they added that, because the only real thing you're doing is just running and jumping.
Yeah, yeah. It seemed really, really cool, but just really simple.
I definitely feel that. I feel that. Go ahead, Brendan, take it away.
Oh, my two picks. So I first pick was Tabletop Simulator. I feel like that's not really the most uncommon pick, but I felt like I just kind of had to push this game. Uh, it's a tabletop game. If you couldn't piece that together from the title,
You don't say.
it was developed and published by Berserk Games on June 5th, 2015 on PC, and currently is sitting at $19.99 USD. I bought it on sale for $10. It was on Steam. It was on sale like a couple weeks ago, $10, and it comes with like 12, 15 games. Anywhere from like solitaire, Go, chess, checkers, etc. But there's also a lot of room for the Steam Workshop where you can like download any game that you really want, like Uno. Like my girlfriend and I we probably stayed up until like 3 a.m. just playing Uno over Tabletop Simulator and Discord for the past like 3 weeks, and it's just been so much fun playing Uno. Like I can't even begin to describe. Like you flip the table, you just flip the table. There's a button to flip the table. And everything's physics based too. So like you could like toss stuff and like flick stuff around the table. Like some guy made in Steam Workshop, going through the list, you can download stuff. One guy made a mini golf course. So, they give you a marble, and they've got this whole course, laid out for you, and stat sheets and stuff. And, you just flick your little marble in the hole. And it was so much fun. It was totally worth the $10. Probably worth the $20, honestly. But it was worth the $10 that I paid for it. You can flip the table. Do I need to say more? My only disclaimer is that you need friends. There's definitely a chance for you to play with randoms, but in my case, when I looked, a lot of those rooms were locked because I guess people were just kind of playing with their friends. So that's my only disclaimer, is that you kind of need friends and other people with this to play. But that being said, once you have it, you literally have any board game or anything ever. Like I spent like 15 minutes making like a little D&D set, like walls and floors and the whole walls. I already said walls, right? The whole nine. Characters, little models and stuff. It was great. It was absolutely great. Tabletop simulators, fantastic. Play board games with your loved ones without actually like seeing them, you know?
I just picked this game up literally yesterday because like I have a friend that lives halfway across the state that I live in, so I don't get to see her all the time. So I was like, well, let's play something else besides the Lords of Waterdeep. And I was like, why don't we play Tabletop Simulator? So we sat there for a couple hours. First we played Clue, and that was a mess because we all forgot how to play Clue. And then we played Coup, which is really fun. I fucking love Coup.
Yeah, Coup's great.
And then we played Uno, and it was the longest round of Uno because each one of us would call Uno, and then we'd get like nothing but like yellow cards when we needed a red. Or somebody would get like blue when they needed green. And so everyone would eventually end up with the whole deck, and then we'd have to go back down again and then back up again. And it's honestly like, it's so funny. Between games, I was sitting there like looking at all the different games that other people were running, and they were running like D&D, and somebody was running like Magic the Gathering or Warhammer, or I think somebody was like doing some like puzzle and Uno, and my friend was like, hey, I wonder if they have Hungry Hungry Hippos, and I was like, I don't know. So I feel like priced at $20, you get so much game for $20. Because if you've thought of it, it's probably on there. Like,
yeah, for
somebody
real.
has put it on there. So I feel like it's a steal, $20, honestly.
You want to play Pazak from Knights of the Old Republic? It's on there.
I want to play some Scrabble right now, though. For real.
Scrabble's definitely on there.
Definitely.
100%.
So I feel like that's like a really good game, especially in these times. If you can't see your friends, like, you got $20, great. You don't need Wendy's today. Go make some homemade beans in a can and spend that $20 on board games with your friends. Virtual
It
board
does
games.
go on sale. It does go on sale kind of often though. So like, if at any point, if 20 is too steep, it's one of those games that goes on sale on Steam fairly often.
I just got a feeling I'd be a.
Oh,
I was gonna say I feel like I'd be a sore loser on this and just flip the table all the damn time.
Dude, it's the point. That's the point. That's the point.
It makes you roll a d20 as a strength check to see if you flip the table.
Yeah,
I thought that was so
it's great.
cool.
It's so cute.
I was like so close to flipping it during Clue, but like all three of us were so close to the end, and then I didn't win, and I was like, shit. I really want to play Monopoly, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god, we should do that. We should definitely play Monopoly.
Yes.
And I don't want to spend too much time on my next pick. Hades from Supergiant Games. It's a roguelike action RPG developed and published by Supergiant Games. It was originally on the Epic Store on December 6th, 2018. And I'd only picked it up somewhat recently when it came out on Steam on December 10th, 2019 for like $25. And it's currently in early access, so that may possibly change. But Hades, my goodness. First off, the soundtrack is phenomenal. It's very Western and twangy. Kind of like Bastion in a way. Yeah, twangy. I don't know how to explain it. It's very, very Bastion, very Western. Like, combat is very fast paced, especially against some of the bosses. And with the difficulty modifiers, it gets really fast paced. Very adrenaline inducing. And the whole shtick of the game is that it's a roguelike, basically playing as the son of Hades, the Lord of the Underworld. And there's a lot of Greek mythology. All the power-ups that you meet or that you get are gods from Olympus that are giving you part of their power, and because they're trying to help you break free from the underworld, which is like this constant changing hellscape, thus explaining the roguelike aspect of it thematically, using the Greek mythology. It's a lot of fun. It's really fast paced, and it's a good way to get your blood pumping, and it's a lot of different weapons to choose from and different variations of said weapons, so it doesn't really feel like you're ever playing the same thing more than once. There's always a way to change it up comfortably, while also progressing at the same time. It always felt like you were progressing and working towards something.
So have you made it out of hell yet?
Well, see, like that's like the part that kind of sucks, is that because it's in so early access, I guess they've been updating it quite a bit. Like I even think that they added a new weapon recently, but no, when I finished it, you basically you get to the end, or what you think is the end, and Hades sitting there, and it's a big, awesome, epic boss fight, and that's I'm assuming that's when you would kind of leave, and like I'm guessing that maybe there's a section that when you would afterwards, but Hades just is like, nope, I kill you anyway, and then you just end up back, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna press my time. So yeah, nothing happens when you leave as of right now, except getting access to more difficulty modifiers and whatnot, changing the game in more ways. But I don't know, it's even just the banter between the characters, like even the dialogue is so witty and well written that you wouldn't really expect that for a roguelike. The focus is on the action, but it's super giant games. They tell a story. I love it, all of it.
I honestly love Greek mythology games so much, especially if they're well done and this art style is really cool. So I think that's really cool that it's called Hades, because not a lot of games take place in hell, or it's always, hell is, I mean, of course hell is always the bad guy, but giving him a son and his son trying to get out, I feel like that's just definitely different.
It certainly is. Especially the part of my favorite thing is the dialogue between the two of them. Hades is such an asshole to his son, and it's not even like, sometimes it's abrasive, but other times it's just like he's just making fun of him, and like it's hilarious. Like it's genuinely funny, but it's also genuinely like damning as well, because it's Hades, it's his father, so you just can't help but smirk as if you're thinking, like, even if maybe you have a parent that's kind of, I don't know, a little overprotective, I guess, if that's what you want to call Hades, overprotective of his son.
Dad, I just want to go out and hang with my friends.
That's what it is.
No, you're supposed to quarantine in hell.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. He's like, you don't have any friends, and he's like, yeah, you're right, but
I still want to go outside anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. It's great banter.
I think that's pretty cool, and it'll be really neat to see how, like, when the full game comes out, how they end it, because I feel like depending on how they end it, they might be able, like, I'd like to see a sequel depending how they end it and where it goes forward, because I mean, if Hades dies, he's not like really dead, and there's lots of other gods of death floating out there. Oh, we're really getting into God of War now, so yeah. Just throw up God of War lore everywhere. But it's just cool to really see a different take on mythology.
Yeah, it's a good time. Very highly recommend.
I'm going to do a quick honorable mention really quick before we wrap this podcast up. So, my honorable mention, and if you guys have any off the top of your head, toss them out there too. But my honorable mention is Night in the Woods. I might have mentioned it before on one of our other podcasts. Right now, it is only, where's the price at? $19.99. I think it's definitely worth it. It's really fun. You play as May, and she's a cat, and all the characters are animals, and her best friend is super cool. All her friends are really cool, and you basically dropped out of college, and you're back in your hometown, and you're just exploring and going on all these wild adventures, and there's replayability because you have different choices that you can make. So there's different avenues that you can take, depending on what you want to do, who you want to interact with. The seasons change, So it's kind of like over the span of a year, roughly. Um, so the town that she walks in will go through season change. The people will be different from day to day. So that's really fun to see. I I don't know. Like I thought it was almost like a coming of age type game because May grows over the game. She's really trying to find herself and figure out what she wants to do as a young adult and just trying to come out of her shell and be her own person. And that's basically what she does. And I cried. I cried like a little bitch. Let's be honest. The ending, oh my god, like, whoo, whoo, lots of twists and turns. Crazy. I was like, wow. And you get like two little side stories at the end that kind of like, that are kind of sort of fun. But yeah, it's really cool. All the characters are cool. I like it. Play it.
I've heard nothing but good things about Night in the Woods, honestly.
I honestly
Check that out.
I can't wait for the goddamn developer to come out with something else because like I really want them to. I want to play whatever they have next because this game was great. I like a sequel or maybe something within this universe, not exactly a story with May and her friends again, but maybe somebody else in a different town still in this art style with these types of characters because I really definitely like it. I'd like to play something like that again.
Very nice.
Yeah, you guys got any honorable mentions?
This was probably the most expensive one on this list, $35, but Temtem. Right now it's in early access, so it's not really complete, but they did release a roadmap and they are adding a ton of new content for this game. If you like Pokemon, it's kind of if Pokemon was an MMO. Like when you're on the map, you can see just tons of other players running around, catching Temtem and just being there. Whereas Pokemon, it was just, the trainers that you're able to fight. This one, you're actually, the world's populated by the players and, you can interact with them easily. The battle system's pretty cool. It's a bit different than Pokemon. And yeah, it's just, if you want a longer RPG to play,
And what makes it similar to Pokemon?
It's still a catch monsters and battle them sort of thing. You're still walking through tall grass looking for new Temtem. You're still doing the battles, even though this is 2-on-2 where Pokemon's 1-on-1. And they all got their different types, so it's similar in that respect, but at the same time, it does make a lot of changes to the Pokemon formula that I feel are a bit fresh.
I liked how you could play the whole game co-op with someone else, one other person, because everything was 2-on-2. So the two of you would just each have one, and
I think you can do battles like that. I don't know if you can play the whole game like that.
Maybe not the whole game, but yeah, battles.
Yeah, you can do battles with other people and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
The hijinks my friend and I got into playing Temtem were we just wouldn't communicate with each other, and we would just get into hijinks, and it was just Temtem was good. Honestly, I had a lot of fun with how little was there. I don't want to say little. There was a lot that was already present, but there's still a lot that's coming. But man, I had a lot of fun with what they had. Almost more than Pokemon, I'd say.
I'm gonna ask a really stupid question, but how do you spell it?
Temtem.
Okay, I was spelling it Tamtam, so I was real confused.
Temtem.
So my suggestion to you would be definitely check to see what sales are currently going on. They have a lot of sales. GameStop, PlayStation Store. There's a lot of games on sale on Nintendo Store right now. Steam was having a couple sales. So definitely watch your sales, and I hope that you guys found something that you're interested in playing. If you did, let us know. Let us know how you're doing. And yeah, so we'll catch you next month. I hope you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next time.